right. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? Good. Well, thank you so much for coming. We have brought the zoo to you from Des Moines today. So I just want to ask you a couple questions. How many of you are signed up for the summer reading program? Awesome. How many of you have gotten your first prize yet? So if you get to the first level of prizes, you will get a ticket to go to the Blank Park Zoo. So if you like what you see today, the animals that she brought, you guys should try to make a trip out to Des Moines and visit Cece over here and all the other animals there. One other thing, did you guys know that if you come to a program at the library that it's good for a point on your summer reading card? Yeah, good. So make sure that you give yourself a point today for coming. One more thing. Did you know that we have books in the library about all of the animals that you're going to see today? I bet you did. So make sure that if you are interested in any of these animals, that you go to the desk in the children's room and ask them if you can find some books about them, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. It looks like there's some groups still coming in. This is Cece. She is here from Des Moines, and she's going to teach you about some animals today. So let's go ahead and give her a round of applause, okay?
Hi guys, so I have 4 animals to show you today. There's a little bit of everything and you will be able to pet one at the end. I just have a few requests from you, so I need you to stay quiet when I have the animals out. And when I'm done talking about them, I'll take questions and you can raise your hands in the air, okay? All right, I'll get my first one out. So this is the smallest animal that I've brought today, and also kind of the creepiest. So this is a giant millipede. It is alive. So right now he's a little scared, so he curls up into those balls, and that's how he protects himself. And another way that he protects himself is he has this toxin that he can make come out of his skin, and it tastes really bad, so predators don't want to eat him very much. But I might be able to get him to crawl up my arm again. So these are giant millipedes, and they are found over in Africa and also in South America. So they live in the rainforest and other types of foresty areas. So millipedes are called millipedes because they have a ton of legs. They don't quite have 1,000 legs or 1,000,000 legs, but they average between 200 and 400 legs. And the reason that we have them at the zoo is because they play a very important role out in the wild, and we have to make sure that their population stays healthy. So in the wild, these guys crawl around the floor of the rainforest, and they clean up dead and decaying matter and different plants, and they eat everything. So they live underneath the leaves, and they eat them. You guys can see he has lots of legs. So when they are born, they're this big, they're the size of a grain of rice, and they're white. So they look like grains of rice as well. And as they grow, they just gain different segments. And they can have between 40 and 60 segments. And each segment will have 2 pairs of legs. So each segment has 4 little legs on it. They're really tiny, and it kind of feels like a hairbrush is crawling on you. So he has these sensory antennae on the front of his face that help him feel where he's going. They can't actually see. They don't really have eyes, but he just crawls around and senses everything and cleans everything up. So at the zoo, we feed him plants from around the zoo that have either started dying or just weeds that we don't want around the zoo. And then he also eats old fruit. So sometimes our animals at the zoo, they don't always want to eat all their fruits and vegetables. So our millipedes clean up what they don't eat. All right, does anyone have questions about this millipede?
Is that how big you can get?
No, so he can get a foot long. Ew. So right now he is only about 1 year old, and they can live about 3 years, and they just keep growing throughout their whole life. So you guys know how snakes shed their skin? Yeah. And they kind of grow every time? So he kind of does that, but it's called molting with millipedes. So he will molt, and every time he's done molting, he'll come out and he'll have even more segments. So he'll eat whatever he can eat. He doesn't have super strong teeth, so he couldn't eat meat like we do, but he eats different plants, different vegetation that's around on the ground. He can't get through super hard fruit or anything, so he wouldn't eat like a coconut, but he eats apples, strawberries. He won't fall, I got him. He's got lots of legs, he's grabbing on. You right there. Yep, you.
We see bugs like that at our home.
Yeah, so you probably have centipedes in your house, which they're called centipedes because they have half the legs that millipedes do. So the millipedes have 2 sets on every segment, and a centipede only has 1 set of legs on each segment. You?
Can we touch him?
You cannot touch him. He is kind of fragile. He does have an exoskeleton, which protects him from some things, but we're pretty strong.
Me?
Yep.
Will centipedes eat anything that's soft?
No, not anything. Anything that smells like a plant.
Actually, we had mealworms, and they kind of look familiar. They kind of look like centipedes.
Yeah, so mealworms are going to be a lighter color. They're going to be like a whiter yellow, and they won't be quite as hard, so they don't have the exoskeleton.
What's the longest those have ever gotten?
So they usually are about 1 foot long, but the longest that one has ever gotten is 18 inches, so that's 1.5 feet.
Is that the only color that they turn?
Yep, so they're usually only black, but they are white when they're born. And they do lay eggs, so their eggs are super tiny, because think, if it's born and it's the size of a grain of rice, their eggs are pretty tiny, and they can lay hundreds and hundreds of eggs. How many segments? So he can grow between 40 and 60. So right now he probably has 26, 25. He's still pretty small. And they just get a little bit fatter as they grow.
Because if they eat too much food, if they're like this big, then they'll actually die by itself.
Oh, yeah, okay. I've never seen that happen, but if he got that big, I'd be really scared.
Yeah, me too. How many legs?
So they can have anywhere between 200 and 400 legs. The average is about 256. Your question?
So big.
He is really big, and he keeps trying to jump off my hands. He's never done that. He's really good at just staying there. In the orange? Yep, so every time they molt, each segment has 4 legs on it. I'll take one more question. In the pink? Do they like water? So they like living in areas that are damp, but they can't swim or breathe underwater. So they'll go where it's wet so they can drink water, but they don't swim in it. So they can't live in it. All right. Someone in the last group named him Jack. So can everyone say thank you, Jack? Thank you, Jack. I'm so sorry. Okay. So this is a tigerback salamander. This is Chip. Chip is about 1 year old, and he lives at the zoo with his brother Pickle and Clausen. So Chip, yeah, so they're all named after different types of pickles. So Clausen and Pickle are green instead of the yellow that Chip is, but they are the same size, and they look pretty much the same as he does. The only thing that's different about Chip, other than his yellow spots, is he has 2 toes that are connected together, which is pretty cool. It's abnormal, but it's pretty cool.
He looks really cute.
So he has this yellow coloration, the stripes on his back, because it makes predators think that he's poisonous. So out in the wild, animals have kind of gained the knowledge that anything that's a bright color is not good for them to eat. So you know how poison dart frogs are bright colors, and tomato frogs are a bright orange. So he makes his predators think that he's poisonous, and he's actually not. So at the zoo, Chip will eat crickets, and his eyesight isn't that great, so we do hand feed him crickets. He gets 6 crickets every other day, and we have to be very patient with him because he's a slow eater. But he does have this big mouth that goes all the way around his head, and it looks like a nice smile. He's very active all the time. As you guys can see, he's just trying to climb up and down my hands. So he will live up to about 15 years old. This is about as big as he will get. He might get just a little bit longer, but he is pretty much full grown at this point. What's your question?
He's wet. What if it really was poison and it bit you and it like ran away and then it was running all over the place and it was climbing on someone and it was like a statue and it like bit
Well, even if he was poisonous, if he bites you, it won't hurt you. So there's a difference between poisonous and venomous. So venomous is if they bite you, then it's going to hurt you. And then poisonous is if you bite them, it's going to hurt you. Yeah, so you would have to eat him. Yeah, you're not going to eat him. Yeah, he is really cute. They are live crickets. So he's kind of lazy. We have to hand feed him, but his brothers will chase them around. He's just lazy. He knows that we'll hand feed him. Yep. So he is similar to geckos. They're both amphibians. Well, no, because he's an amphibian and geckos are more reptiles. So he is like right in between a lizard and a frog. So he absorbs everything through his skin, and he can't climb like geckos can. So he doesn't have the sticky feet. So he absorbs everything through his skin, and that's why I sprayed him. Did you guys see me spray him before he came out? Yeah. So we have to make sure that he stays nice and moisturized. And if you see anything that's falling off of him, that is moss. So when he travels, we keep him in moss because moss holds in the moisture so he doesn't dry out, because his skin does dry out pretty easily.
What's his name again?
Chip. Yeah. What's your question? Yeah, so at the zoo, we only give him crickets because it is the healthiest thing for him. If he was out in the wild, he would eat other types of insects. They've been known to eat small frogs, baby mice. So in the wild, they will kind of eat whatever they can fit in their tiny little mouths. You right here with the backwards cap. You cannot touch him. So like I said, he does absorb everything through his skin. So that's why I had to make sure my hands were clean, and I sprayed my hands before I picked him up as well.
Does he have eyes? Because I can't see his eyes.
Yeah, so he has really, really tiny little eyes on the side of his head. I can walk around so you guys can see him a little better. But he has really tiny eyes, and that's why he doesn't have very good eyesight. And that's why he's learned that if he's lazy, we'll just bring the crickets right to him. Oh, make sure I can still walk between you, please. What's your question? What color is his tongue? His tongue is pink. It's not very long, so it's not like chameleons. He won't stick it out and roll them back up into his mouth. He just has a little suction cup at the end of his tongue that helps them pull into his mouth. What's your question?
Do they also shed?
He does not shed. So if his skin dries out too much, which we've noticed once in a while, it will kind of just like peel off, kind of like how when you guys get a sunburn and your skin starts to peel. It does that, but it does regrow back, but he doesn't shed like a snake would. So salamanders are capable of losing their tails if a predator tries to grab them. So they'll drop their tail off and they can regenerate it back.
How long can they live without food?
How long can they live without food? So I do not know the answer to that because we feed them. So he gets fed every other day, but since he is relatively small, I would assume he couldn't go very long without food. You back there in the orange, and then I'll pull out my next animal. Yep, you. Yeah, I'm sorry. You were the only one with your hand up, though. He does have teeth. They're very, very tiny, and they don't really do much, so when he eats, he uses his tongue and presses things up against the roof of his mouth to eat them. All right. Can everyone say thank you, Chip?
Thank you, Chip.
If everyone can stay quiet when I have her out, please. So this is Marley. She is a Bluetongue Skink, and you guys might be able to see her tongue when she sticks it out. So she is one of my favorite animals that we have in our education department at the zoo. She is a little bit older. She's about 16 years old, and usually they live to be about 20. So she is partially blind and partially deaf. So that's why I need you guys to stay really quiet, because if you guys get too loud, she gets nervous because she doesn't really know what's going on around her. So skinks are really, really cool. So they look kind of in between a lizard and a snake. So she has scales like a snake does, and those are to protect her. So she is from Australia, and she will live anywhere between a desert area or tropical area, just depending on where she's born. She is getting kind of squirmy. She gets nervous. You're okay. So she lives anywhere between a desert and tropical area, just depending on where she's born. And she has those hard scales to protect her, just so, because she does go through sand and dirt and gravel a lot. She also has scales over her ears, and those are to protect from getting sand inside her ears. So she has short limbs that aren't as developed as other lizards, and she can throw those to her side and wiggle around like a snake does. And it makes other things think that she might be a snake, but she's actually not a snake. So her tongue is blue, and the reason that it's blue is, like I said before, predators always think animals with those bright colors are poisonous. So if a predator comes up to her, and her predators are usually, in Australia, cats and dogs, different types of carnivores, big birds, larger snakes. She'll stick her tongue out and she'll puff up her body really big and try and make them look like she's poisonous. So it doesn't always work, but it is pretty good mechanism to try and keep them away from her. And then she has a really hard head, because when she's, she lays pretty low in the ground, so when she's digging around, if she hits a rock or something, her head protects her. What's your question?
Will we get to touch her?
No, so you're not going to be able to touch her today. She is pretty nervous. She's breathing really heavy right now, and she will maybe start squirming again. My last animal is going to be the one that you guys can pet. So at the zoo, we feed her crickets and different types of vegetables and fruit. She really likes strawberries, and it's really cute when she eats them because her tongue is blue and she's eating red strawberries, and it looks really funny. What's your question? Huh? What? I'm sorry. Can you guys be quiet so I can hear him, please? What did he say? How do I know if it's a boy or a girl? So if there was a boy and a girl next to each other, you can tell that it's a girl because she will be bigger than the male. But at the zoo, we have our veterinarians check if they're boys or girls, because usually you have to do it through blood tests. In the pink.
Which one? How long was the
How long was the longest Bluetongue skink? So usually they're anywhere between 12 and 18 inches long. I don't know how big the biggest one is, but she is relatively big. She's nice and healthy. What's your question?
What are those scales?
What are her scales? So her scales are kind of like snake scales, and they protect her from dirt and gravel, and it makes her a little bit hardier, so when things try to eat her, they realize that she's kind of harder to eat. Yep.
Does she have sharp teeth?
So she has really dull teeth, but she has a really strong jaw. So if she were to bite you, it would still hurt because she can clamp down pretty hard. And she is very flexible. So potentially she could probably reach around and bite me right now, which is why I like to make sure she's very, very comfortable. If any of our animals were to bite us, we know their stress signs. So if they were to bite us, it would be my fault because I didn't make sure she was as comfortable as she could be. You back there. Yep, you. Yeah, so there's a lot of different species of Bluetongue skink. She is darker than I usually see, so a lot of them will be much whiter. They still have the dark scales that she does, but they're more white all over. You back there in the back. Yep, you. What do they eat? So in the wild, she would eat small amphibians, different fruits and vegetables, and then at the zoo, we specifically feed her crickets, cat food, different vegetables. Yeah, so cat food is really good for them because it has a lot of vitamins and nutrients in it that she needs just like your pet cat would need. One of you two, you can both go eventually. What colors can they be? So she can be this dark color, she can be more of the lighter color that's on her, she can also be white or a tan. It kind of just depends on what subspecies of Bluetongue skink she is. There's also pygmy ones, which pygmy usually means they're a bit smaller, so they can be pretty small too. Okay, and then what's your question?
How long do they get?
How long do they get? So she is relatively full grown. She could probably get a little bit longer, but this is about as long as she'll get. What's your question?
How big can they get?
How big can they get? This is as big as she can get. She's full grown. What's your question?
How many crickets does she eat at night?
How many crickets does she eat? So every time we feed her crickets, we put 8 in there, and she does like to chase them around, but since she can't see that well, she has kind of adapted to just laying there until she can see them right in front of her. But she gets 12 every other day in the red.
Can they swim?
So she can swim, but she's not very good at it. So you know how when we're swimming, we use our arms a lot? Do you see how tiny her little legs are? Yeah, so they're pretty tiny. They can't hold her up very well. One more question. Huh? How do they walk? How fast can they walk? So if she was scared, she could go pretty quickly, but I've never seen her go very fast. She is relatively slow, but when she's scared, she throws her legs to her side and slithers around. So she can slide around a lot faster than she can walk. All right, and I'll take one more question.
How does it open its mouth?
How does it open its mouth? So she has jaw bones and muscles just like we do. So she opens her mouth just like we do. Just like that. All right, so can everyone say thank you, Marley? Thank you, Marley. That's what I just put Marley in. So she's just sleeping. She's already closing her eyes. She's tired today. All right, so my last animal is one that you guys have all probably seen, but he's pretty cool. All right. Thank you. All right. So even though you guys have seen this, Olaf here, he came to us at the zoo from the Animal Rescue League, and he came to us with his two sisters, Anna and Elsa, and his brother Sven. So they all just had a birthday. They just turned 1 back in June, or back in the beginning of June. I guess it's still June. And the really cool thing about guinea pigs is they used to be found in the wild all over South America, around the Andes Mountains. And back in really, really long ago, 5000 BC, they were domesticated by tribes, and they were originally used for food. And then in the 16th century, the Europeans came over to the United States and brought them over here, and they were like, no, they're just too cute, and we started keeping them as pets. So they are very, very calm. They're pretty sweet. He does get nervous, and he makes little sounds that sound like a piggy. He just kind of oinks when he's nervous. So he's not from Guinea. Like I said, he is from South America, and he's not a pig. So he is a rodent. He is a very cute rodent. He is larger than most rodents. He will get anywhere between 1 and 3 pounds. So he's got pretty big eyes, and those eyes are because he is a prey species. They are not found out in the wild anymore, but when they were, he has those big eyes to help him be able to see on both sides of him so he can run away from his predators. What's your question? You're babysitting a guinea pig? That guinea pig's really lucky he gets to hang out with you. So at the zoo, our guinea pigs do get different types of vegetables, and once in a while they'll get fruits. They do kind of like bananas. They're always a little questionable about it. And then he also gets guinea pig pellets, which just make sure he has all the vitamins and nutrients that he needs. He loves to play outside when we take him to Critter Corner at the zoo. Can everyone stay quiet, please? Thank you. So he loves to play at Critter Corner, and he plays outside with his brothers and his sisters, and they run around and they love to dig in the mulch, and they always try to climb up the fence, but they don't understand that they have really short legs, so they can't really grab onto things very well. And he also has a really big, you guys know, like hamster balls? He has one of those that's about this big, and he just runs around in it, and it makes sure he stays nice and healthy. That's exciting. They're pretty hard to take care of, but just make sure you do your research.
Two questions. Are guinea pigs and rabbits related somehow?
So rabbits are in the family Lagomorpha, and guinea pigs are more closely related to rodents. So they're kind of similar. They look a lot alike, and they have very similar just like habits in the way they live, but these guys have shorter ears, and that's because they do have more hair. So rabbits have long ears to help them, so they need to hear a lot better, and they also have long ears because they live in colder climates. So their ears are longer because it helps them to regulate their temperature more, whereas guinea pigs are from hotter climates, so they don't need those long ears. You and then you. That's cool. That's cool. What's your question?
Where do guinea pigs live?
So guinea pigs are not found out in the wild anymore. They have all been domesticated. But if they were found out in the wild hundreds and hundreds of years ago, so it's the 21st century now. Back in the 16th century, guinea pigs were completely domesticated and not found in the wild anymore. But when he was in the wild, he was down in South America along the Andean mountains.
What are guinea pigs' predators?
Guinea pigs predators. So if they were out in the wild, foxes, big birds, big snakes, If they're in your house, your cat or your dog, pretty much anything that's bigger than them. Guinea pigs don't have very many things to defend themselves. They just kind of run away. It's just a survival thing out in the wild so they can survive and feed their families. What's your question? What? Where is his family? So his brothers or his sisters and his brother are back at the zoo. So all of our animals at the zoo, they travel around with us all around Iowa to different libraries just like this, but sometimes they need a break. So today he's going to be away from the zoo for about 10 hours. So tomorrow he gets the day off. So he just gets to hang out and be with all his friends. Where are his mom and dad? So guinea pigs, you know how you go off to college and you don't live with your parents anymore? So guinea pigs stop living with their parents a lot earlier than we do, but he just kind of has his own house now. Yep. He is a boy. So Olaf is a boy, Sven is a boy, and then Anna and Elsa are girls. And we have our zoo veterinarians tell us if they're boys or girls. You get to pet him at the end, as soon as I make sure everyone's questions are answered. And then after that, I'm going to tell you how to pet him and then make sure you get hand sanitizer. Yep. How big do they get? So they grow really, really fast. So when guinea pigs are born, they don't need very much care from their parents. They are born, they're fully furred, and they can walk. So he grows pretty quickly, and he is relatively full grown at this point. So he might get a little bit bigger, but this is about as big as he'll get. You in the blue. All from Frozen. So all of our animals in the education program, they hang out around kids a lot. So we like to make sure that all the names are names that kids can remember. And it's really nice when they come from movies because that kids have seen, because then they know the names and they can relate it to their favorite character. How long do they live? Okay, so how long do they live and how do you take care of them? So guinea pigs usually live between 6 and 8 years. And you take care of them, so you have to make sure they have a nice home to live in. They like to sleep on, it's called hamster sawdust kind of, and it's just like really soft stuff that they can lay on. And then they also like to play with newspaper, and then you just have to make sure they always have water and feed them every day. They have specific things for guinea pigs at pet stores, different types of food. And then they also really like vegetables and fruit, so you can give that to them on top of their food at the vet or at the pet store.
Is there any more families that have Disney names?
So there's not any more animals that are brothers and sisters that have Disney names, but we have, I don't think Bert and Ernie is Disney, but we have Bert and Ernie, they're gopher tortoises. And then we have 3 girl ferrets that are named Monica, Phoebe, and Rachel after the show Friends. And they all match the hair colors. And then we have Thelma and Louise, which are our fancy rats. So usually if they're related, we try to make their names pretty similar. So like Chip, that salamander I had, his brothers are Pickle and Clausen because they're all different types of pickles. But yeah, so if they're related, we try to give them names so everyone knows that they're brother and sister.
What does Elsa, Anna, and Sven look like?
So Anna is all white, so she is blonde just like the show. And then, or no, I'm sorry, Elsa. Elsa is blonde. I've never seen the movie, I'm sorry. So Elsa is all white, so she's blonde like in the movie. And then Anna is black and white, and she has really long hair, so her hair is much longer. And then Sven is white and black as well, but he has short hair like Olaf does. So they don't all totally match their names, but Elsa definitely does. What's your question? What do you say? Yep, so we have 5 ferrets at the zoo. So we have the 3 girls, and then we have a brother and sister named Jack and Jill. Yeah, ferrets are pretty cool. They're really mischievous, though. All right, you right there. Yep. Can everyone be quiet, please? Never mind? Okay. You in the army hat. Yeah? Yep, so I remember the nursery rhyme when I was growing up. That was Jack and Jill.
How old is he?
How old is he? So he turned 1 on June 7th. So a few weeks ago, he turned 1. And he had a cute little party hat. Yep. We do have lions and tigers at the zoo. Unfortunately, they don't fit in my little car that's right there. And I am not trained to be near them. So I did not want to bring them and put any of you guys in danger. Okay, so which one is my favorite of the guinea pigs? Olaf is my favorite. That's why I brought him. I always request him because he is the most behaved, and the other ones have all bit me. So guinea pigs do bite. They get nervous, and that is almost the only thing they have to defend themselves. So when they were really little, we tried to get them as used to people as we could. But some of them are still nervous, and I think Olaf is the only one who likes me. So if I were to close all the doors in here and set him down, he would probably run around. I would be scared that people would step on him because he is pretty small, and eventually he'd probably get scared and try and hide somewhere, and eventually we just have to wait for him to fall asleep, and then I'd grab him. So we're not going to do that. But that's a good question. He is pretty quick. You back there. Yep. What does domesticated mean? That's a really, really good question. So there's a difference between domesticated and tame. So tame is if you have a tiger and you tame it, you can get it to behave and do things that you want it to do. So at the zoo, we have trained our tigers to step up onto scales so we can weigh them. And we've also trained them to jump up on their hind legs and go like this so we can do a check on their stomach just to make sure everything's good. So taming them is just knowing that we can have them do certain things that we need to do, but they are not domesticated. So domesticated means that they are not going to hurt us. They don't have the instinct to hunt us, or they're just very used to people. So we can only kind of tame a lion or a tiger to not try and kill us. But at the same time, we never go very close to lions and tigers. So even our zookeepers are never hands-on with any of the animals for very long because they are still dangerous animals. So domesticated animals are going to be domesticated ferrets, your cat, your dog. They're animals that have been bred for years and years and years to live with humans. I'm going to answer her question, and then you can pet them. How's that sound? Okay.
How long can they go without food?
How long can they go without food? Why do you guys want to know that? We want to feed them. So, again, he probably can't go very long without food because he's small and his metabolism is fast. So our guinea pigs are free-fed. We always have food in there. We don't have strict diets for them. So they always have food in their habitats so they can eat at all times of the day whenever they get hungry because they eat and they digest it very quickly and they become hungry again. Okay, one more question and then I'm going to let everyone pet him, okay? Yep? I don't know how fast, but I'd say he was probably full grown by about 6 months of age. So they grow a lot faster than us because if you've ever seen a 6-month-old baby, they're definitely not full grown, right? Yeah, so humans grow a lot slower and live a lot longer than guinea pigs. All right, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have everyone line up over here, and everyone will get to pet him, so please don't push. Yeah, follow her, and she'll start the line.
All right, so you can pet